Good morning and welcome to day 5 of the Sunrise Challenge. Today we'll be exploring the warrior poses, Virabhadrasana 1, 2, and hopefully 3. These are some pretty common poses in yoga that require strength, flexibility, balance, and most of all, courage. Courage is something that we'll be exploring in this class, as it does take a lot of courage to live with mental illness and to support someone with mental illness. Things can get kind of scary sometimes in your own mind, or as you worry about one of your loved ones that might be struggling. So the warrior poses give us a reminder to stand tall, stay strong, be balanced, and to have courage to look towards the future. You can navigate on over to your playlist. The link is in the description or in the email, and we can hit play at the same time and get going on our morning practice today. So without further ado, I will hit play on my playlist in 3, 2, 1. I'll talk for a moment so you can get your volume organized. I'm so happy that you've made it this far in the challenge. It's been so lovely to connect with you so far, and I hope that we can continue to do so into the future. And be proud of yourself for putting in this much effort and for raising so much money for mental health initiatives in Canada. Okay, so settling into your mat, finding a comfortable seated position. We'll just settle into today. Straight through the spine, shoulders folding down and away from the ears, closing down through the eyes perhaps. Beginning to deepen the breaths a little bit. Relaxing into the body. Perhaps noticing the temperature of the air as it hits your skin and enters the nostrils. Noticing any smells around you. There's a lovely apple tree blooming just down the path here that I can smell. It's lovely. And lilacs. Perhaps any sounds you can hear. Robins chirping. I heard some turkeys gobbling a little while ago. Opening the eyes and noticing any sights that you can see where you're doing your practice. I was lucky enough to see a deer this morning on my hike up here to this beautiful farmer's field. So I was a little bit late for my sunrise because I paused to watch the deer bound across the field, which was beautiful. The benefits of getting up early and being a little bit courageous in your adventures. I must admit I didn't really want to get up this morning because it is the May 2-4 weekend currently, and I was listening to fireworks most of the night, but I digress. I'm glad that I'm here. I think you'll find that most of the time, no matter how you're feeling, when you come to the mat, you eventually just settle into a practice. And by the time you leave your mat, you're feeling much better than you were when you arrived. And I find I've never regretted a yoga practice. Sometimes you just need those 30 seconds of bravery to get out of bed. So take a deep breath in here. Big sigh out. Big breath in. Big sigh out. Deep breath in. Long sigh out. Okay, so we will be doing our warm-up from a standing position today. So let's come to our mountain pose. Feet are about hip width apart. Grounding down through the feet, maybe rocking back and forth a little bit, connecting the heels, the balls of the feet, the toes with the earth. Palms facing forward. Gentle bend in the knees, stacking knees over ankles, hips over knees, one vertebrae of the spine over the other. Shoulders down and away, crown reaching up towards the sky, standing strong in mountain pose. We'll take a deep breath in as the arms come up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands down to the sides. Inhale, hands up to heart center. Or inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, hands down to the sides. And one more. Inhale, up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, hands down to the sides. Inhale, both hands up, open overhead. Exhale as we fold over to the right. Coming into a crescent shape here. You might turn to gaze at the sky. Inhale back to center. Exhale to the left. Inhale to center. Exhale to the right. Opening up through the side body, the ribs. Moving at your own pace back and forth here. And hands back down to heart center. This time we're going to open up with the right hand in front of us, left hand behind us. We twist open to the left. Inhale back to center. Exhale, open to the right. Moving at your own pace. Opening up the chest. Standing strong. Twisting slightly from the hips. Last one. Coming back to center. I'll take a slight back bend here. Gazing at the sky, lifting the chin ever so slightly. Exhale as we swan dive down to the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead, root to rise here. Slight back bend. Hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale as you swan dive. Bending through the upper back. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise. Hands to heart center as we exhale. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, fold, swan dive down towards the mat. Last one here. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root to rise. Last one. Hands to heart center. Inhale, up and overhead. And hands just come to the sides. We'll stay standing for now. Okay, so you might have noticed that we missed our breathing technique. I was waiting until we were standing because we're doing a fun one today. It's called the breath of joy. So let's start our day off with some joy. So it's kind of a bit of a three-part breath. We're gonna take the hands out in front of us. We're gonna breathe in as we bring our hands out to the sides. Breathe in again as we bring our hands up. And exhale as we fold and draw the hands down behind us. So it looks a little bit funny, so let's try it again. So remember on the first breath to only take a half breath, and then there's like a bit of a second fill up and then an expulsion at the end. So hands out in front of you. So you can watch me for a couple, we'll do a few. So they're a forceful breath. We're really pumping our lungs here. That's your own breath or your own pace. And that is your breath of joy. Okay, so we've practiced this part of the breath a couple times. In fact, we just did it. It's the beginning of our sun salutation, and it's called Surya Namaskar, which means sun breath. Well, Surya Namaskar is actually the whole sun salutation. Surya is the sun part. So this is when we take our deep breath in, we do hands up and overhead, hands to heart center. So we exhale, inhale, arms up and overhead. So you can see we're drawing like a sun sort of shape here, right? The sun goes down and the sun comes back up. So you're probably familiar with this. We've done it a couple times so far in our sessions here. So you know what you're doing here. I'll just finish up this one and I'll show you some additions we're going to add to it. Let's do one more. You guys know the drill by now. So we're going to add something a bit more challenging, which is called a chaturanga. Okay, so I'm going to turn sideways on the mat so you can see me a little bit better. So we're going to add this in here. So inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, swan dive down to the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Okay, here's where it changes. So we'll plant the hands out in front of us. You can step or hop the feet back into a downward facing dog.
Getting situated in downward facing dog. We'll only be here for a moment as we roll the body forward so that the shoulders are over the wrists.
Dropping the bum down, you might have to scoot your feet back a little bit. And we're going to do sort of a reverse push-up down to the ground. So if this is difficult for you, you might drop the knees here, untuck the toes, and let the body sink down into the mat. So now we're belly front on the mat. We have the hands under the shoulders. We're going to lift up the front body. So let's just do a little baby cobra here. So not using the arms at all. This is all coming from the upper chest. Exhale to fold. Inhale, tuck the toes under. Press up. You can keep your knees on the mat if you like. Press up. Now we lift the knees, send the hips back into downward facing dog.
Take a deep breath in, and then walk the feet and the hands towards each other, or hop the feet forward.
Now we're back in our our forward fold, and now we'll finish the rest of our breath. So inhale, halfway lift, exhale, fold, inhale, arms up and overhead, putting it all together. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Step or hop. Back to your downward facing dog.
Up on the tiptoes, rolling the body forward.
Shoulders over wrists. And if you're finding that you have a hard time with the bent legs, you actually might just stay in table here and not do the whole chaturanga part, which is that little push-up part. Just if you have some joint issues or your pregnancy or anything like that, you definitely don't want to be belly to the mat. So this is a good modification. You can just do your cat-cows while I'm moving the class through the chaturanga, which we'll be doing in tomorrow's practice. So table is always an option. I meant to mention that before. Okay, so let's move from our table here back into our sort of low push-up, sinking down to the mat. Inhale, this time we'll do Queen Cobra, so we'll push with the arms a little bit. Deep breath in. Exhale down to the mat. Inhale, tuck the toes under, send the hips up and back. Well, we'll push up first. Push up. Send the hips up and back. Downward facing dog. Step or hop. Back to the center. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Okay, let's halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Let's plant the hands, step or hop the feet back. Coming into our downward facing dog.
Gentle bend in the knees, gentle bend in the elbows, drawing the shoulders back and down, aiming for a nice straight back as the tailbone points skyward. Keeping the left foot planted, lifting the right up towards the sky, coming into three-legged dog, circling through the ankle.
We're going to be sending the right ankle between the hands. So the easiest way for you to do this might actually be to drop the knees down to the mat and just step the right foot up in between the hands. So that might be the easiest for you. You can also tent the fingers if you just need a little bit more space under the body. Up to you, just find a transition that's comfortable for you. Or you might be here, you might bend the knee, shift the shoulders over the wrists, giving yourself lots of space to step that foot up in between the hands. So we'll be in our lunge here. Let's start with dropping the left knee down, untucking the toes, coming into high lunge. So you can tent your fingertips for a little bit of extra room here. Begin to lift that chest up towards the short edge of the mat. Both of our hips are facing the short edge as well. You might lift the upper body up, sweep the arms back up and overhead, coming into low lunge here. You can exhale the hands back down to the mat. And we can try our high lunge. So we'll untuck the toes, lift the knee, coming in to high lunge. The heel is up off the mat here. You might also lift arms up and overhead for a little bit of an extra challenge, lighting a fire in the right thigh. Exhale back down to the mat. So in our high lunge here, it's a little bit easier to come back out of the pose. So we'll plant down through the hands, step the foot back
into downward facing dog, planting the right foot now as the left foot comes up into three-legged dog, circling through the ankle, and perhaps coming down to your table.
and step the left foot forward. Or you might come from your three-legged dog, shifting shoulders over wrists, bending the knee, stepping up and through. Dropping the right knee down, untucking the toes, coming into our low lunge. Hips are squared to the front of the mat. You might feel some sensation in the right hip. Exhale, hands down to the mat. Tuck the toes under, lift the knee if you feel comfortable. If not, you might just stay on your low, that's okay. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Lighting a fire in the left thigh now. Exhale, hands down to the mat. Stepping back into our downward facing dog.
So let's add our chaturanga in here. What you might do is drop the knees down.
Shifting shoulders over wrists, untucking the toes, and you might just sink the body down in your little push-up here. Inhale as we push up to cobra. Exhale back down to the mat. And again, you might stay on your knees here with your little half push-up, and then send the hips skyward back into our downward facing dog. So let's run that through another time, and if you feel like you would like to try the full sort of push-up, you're able to this time. So rolling forward into our plank, dropping down to the mat. Inhale to Queen Cobra. Exhale to fold. Tuck the toes under if you're going to do your full push-up here. 3, 2, 1. Push away from the earth. Coming into our plank. Send the hips back into downward facing dog. So let's put it all together with our lunges this time. So let's walk the feet towards the hands, coming into our forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Step or hop the feet back to your downward facing dog.
Again, if the chaturangas aren't quite right for you, you could drop down to hands and knees and move through a cat-cow progression. It's up to you.
But if you'd like to give the chaturangas a go, we'll send the body forward into our plank. Exhale down to the mat. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, fold. Tuck the toes under, press up.
Send the hips back up into downward facing dog. Right leg comes up and stepping forward in any way that feels right for you.
High or low lunge, yogi's choice. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Stepping back to downward dog. Bring the feet up towards the hands. Coming into our forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, fold. You're doing great. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Step or hop back to downward facing dog.
We're in downward facing dog. Roll the body forward.
Shoulders over wrists. Dropping the knees if you feel more comfortable, or just staying in your cat-cow. Exhale down to the mat. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, fold. Tuck the toes under, press up.
Send the hips back into downward facing dog. Plant the right foot, the left foot comes up. Circling through the ankle and bringing the foot up in a way that feels comfortable.
Low lunge or high lunge, yogi's choice. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Stepping the left foot back to meet the right. Downward facing dog. Step or hop to the middle of the mat. Forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, swan dive. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Step or hop back to downward facing dog. Rolling the hips forward to your plank. Or cat-cow here, whatever feels good. Down to the mat. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, down to the mat. Inhale, push up. And send it back to downward facing dog. Step or hop back to your forward fold. Beautiful. Okay, so let's begin our warriors here. We'll halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, down to the sides. Okay, so let's start with warrior one, Virabhadrasana 1. So there's a couple conflicting ways in which you can do this pose, but I'll give you sort of the basics and you just find what feels right for your own body. So take a little bit of a step forward with the right foot and a pretty generous step back with the left. Okay, so we're kind of in a bit of a pyramid pose here. Right now my right feet are facing right off the mat, parallel with the long edge of the mat. My left foot is about 45 degrees in, and I'm making sure to connect the outer edge of my foot in with the mat. And I'm going to begin to shift my weight into the front knee here, making sure that my knee doesn't pass over the ankle joint and definitely not over the toe. So that's number one alignment point. We want to make sure that we don't overstretch the front knee. We want to keep a gentle bend in the left knee. And we want to shift our weight towards the front of our mat here. So as we sink into that front knee, we're aiming to bring the hips square to the front of the mat. So you might just take your hand on the left hip and sort of face it towards the front of the mat. So if you feel like your back left heel is starting to lift here, experiment with that angle. Maybe 60 degrees, maybe 45 degrees works for you. But we want to be able to square our hips to the front of the mat. So traditionally, this pose is done with the front heel aligned with the middle of the arch of the foot of the back heel. But if you do that, it kind of like puts you off balance a little bit. So sometimes it's better to have sort of a hip width apart of the feet. So almost like you're standing on train tracks instead of a tightrope here. So just sort of experiment with what feels good. The distance apart from your feet doesn't really matter as long as we can get those hips pointing forward. So this is warrior one, this is warrior one. So it depends on whatever you feel most comfortable with. So experiment with that a little bit. And once we have our feet forward, we're gonna make sure, once we have our hips forward, take your hand to the inside of your right knee and sort of push it out a little bit because there's a tendency for this leg to sort of like sink in towards the middle of the mat. We want to keep it stacked directly over the ankle and pointing straight off of the mat. So experiment with what feels right in your body. Try not to collapse into the knees too much. Stay tall through the upper body, stacking all of our vertebrae over each other. We'll inhale the arms up and overhead. And exhale, sink the shoulders down and away from the ears. So the biceps are on either side of the ears, shoulders sinking down. Bending into that front knee, hips straight, gentle bend in the left foot. Making sure that we're connecting the whole foot, the whole back left foot down with the mat. You might even take a little bit of a back bend here. In our warrior one, feeling strong. Exhale, arms back down. Let's turn the front foot in 45 degrees. Turn the left foot 45 degrees to the other corner of the mat. Take a deep breath in, arms up and overhead, slight bend on our knees here. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands back down to the sides. Okay, let's do the left side now. So right foot comes in 45-degree angle, left foot faces all the way off the mat. Make sure that you're on your train tracks, not your tightrope. So you'll notice today I have a much wider stance than I will tomorrow. I've already filmed tomorrow's class. And that's because it was really cold on that morning and my muscles were not as loosey-goosey. So you might find that some days your muscles might be able to stretch more than others. Also, I was on a dock and I was a little bit afraid of falling into some frigid cold water in May. So just be aware that your body might feel different on different days. So again, making sure this knee does not come over the toes or the ankle. We're squaring our hips to the front of the mat. So you might take your right hand to right hip, square it towards the front of the mat. Gentle bend in that back right knee. Connecting the whole back foot in with the mat. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, sink the shoulders back and down. Deep breaths here, lighting a bit of a fire in the left hamstring this time. You might take a slight gaze upwards, a little bit of a back bend here. Exhale, let's come back to the front of the mat. Feet 45 degrees, pointing the corners. Inhale, arms up and overhead.
Exhale, hands to heart center.
Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale as we fold down, swan dive, gentle bend in those knees. Remember, protecting our joints. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands down to the sides. Beautiful. Okay, so that's our warrior ones. So remember, we always have knee over ankle. We make sure that our feet are on tight ropes. On train tracks, not tight ropes. And shoulders are back and down away from the ears. Those are the most important things. If you want to keep your stance a little bit shorter, that's totally fine. If you want to keep them wider, also fine, as long as hips are square to the front of the mat. And then when we do our warrior two, our hips are square to the long edge of the mat. So we'll explore that next. So let's actually start from our warrior one on our right side this time. So stepping forward with the right foot, back with the left, train tracks, 45 degrees, hips square to the front of the mat as we're in warrior one. And to transition to warrior two, we exhale, open the hands, open the hips to the long side of the mat. Our shoulders stay back and down. You might find that you have a bit more room here, so you can heel toe that right foot forward a little bit. And then this time we'll take the right hip, pressing it towards the front of the mat. And again, that right knee, we want to push back to make sure that it's in the middle of the mat. We don't want it to sort of collapse in to the direction that our upper body is facing. So feeling strong here, taking a deep breath in, deep breath out. You might turn the head to gaze over the front fingers, the middle finger. In yoga, we sometimes talk about this pose being in the present. So the back hand is facing into the past. The front hand is facing into the future. And we are in the present, having the courage to look into the future, but being in this present moment. So let's add a little bit of flair to this pose. So we're going to take an inhale. We'll take the left hand down to the left thigh. Our right hand comes up and overhead as we gaze up at the sky, challenging our balance here. Exhale, coming back to center. Now we're going to take right forearm to right knee, or right thigh. Left hand comes up and overhead, creating a long line in the body here. Inhale, back to center. One more time, we'll go up with the right hand. Exhale, back to center. Right forearm to right thigh, left hand comes up and overhead. Inhale, back to center. And one more. Back to center. Last one. And back to center. Okay, so let's put those toes back to our 45 degrees, coming back to our 4-point star. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, hands up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, ups and overhead. Hands to heart center. One more. Up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Up and overhead. Heart center. And back to the side. Okay, so let's go back to our warrior one on the left side here. So left foot pointing along the long side of the mat. Right foot back on our train tracks. Hips squared to the front of the mat. Sinking into the front leg here. Arms up and overhead, shoulders down and away from the ears. Deep breath in. Exhale as we open up to the front long side of the mat here. So you see me like adjusting my feet a bit. You just have to do sort of what feels right in your body. So we want those hips to be squared to the long edge of the mat. Again, left knee, we want to make sure we're opening it up so that it's not caving in towards the right side of the mat here. So arms are at shoulder width or shoulder height, shoulders down and away from the ears, hips squaring to the front of the mat, gentle bend in the right knee. Deep breath in. Again, looking out over the left middle finger. We'll take the right hand to the right thigh as we windmill the arms up, challenging our balance here. Exhale back to center. Left forearm to left thigh as the arm comes up and overhead. Inhale back to center. We'll take left hand up, right hand back down. Coming back to center. Flowing here, you know what to do. Flowing with the breath. Deep breath in. So we turn the feet back, 45 degrees. Deep breath in, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. And back to the side. Okay, let's put it all together into a little flow here. So this will be kind of what our whole class tomorrow will be, but we'll just give it a little bit of a run through. And I'll give you some modifications that might not appear in tomorrow's class that you might choose to do instead. Okay, so I'm gonna start on my mat lengthways. Let's inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, swan dive. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, folds. Planting the hands, step or hop the feet back into downward facing dog. Roll the body forward into plank. Dropping down to the knees if that's more comfortable. And if you don't feel like doing the push-ups, you might just do your cat-cow here. Up to you, yogi's choice. Inhale to cobra. Exhale to fold. Again, staying on the knees here if that's more comfortable for you for the push-up. Yogi's choice. Sending it back to downward facing dog. Let's take the right leg up, circling through the foot, and in a way that's more comfortable for you, bringing your right foot up between the right hands. Okay, we're gonna go into warrior one here. So you might heel toe the right foot out towards the outside of the mat a bit, making sure that we're on our train tracks. Dropping the left heel down to the mat, maybe stepping it in a bit in a way that's comfortable for you. Ugh. So right foot forward. We are in our high lunge here. So we'll lift the arms up and overhead. Coming into high lunge. And coming from our high lunge to our warrior one, we'll step the back foot forward and out a little bit. So our hips are, our feet are hip width apart, 45 degrees on the back foot, coming into warrior one. So if you were in your low lunge here, tuck the toes under, lift the back knee, step in just a little bit. We're keeping our feet on train tracks, not tight ropes, so hip width apart. You might have to move the right foot out towards the right edge of the mat. Left foot on a 45-degree angle. Keeping our knee over the ankle joint, we'll sweep the arms up and overhead into our warrior one, shoulders down and away from the ears. Take a deep breath in. Exhale as we open up to warrior two. This time hips are facing the long edge of the mat. You might have to open up with that back foot a little bit. Inhale, let's take the right hand up and overhead. Left hand comes to the back thigh. Exhale, right forearm to right thigh. Left arm up and overhead. Coming back to center. Deep breath in, arms up and overhead. Turn back into your warrior one. Exhale, hands back down to the mat. Lifting that back heel. Shifting left or right foot back to meet the left into our downward facing dog. Stepping or hopping back to center. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, folds. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Halfway down here. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, folds. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Planting the hands, step or hop the feet back to your downward facing dog. Shift the body forward. Shoulders over wrists. I always find that I have to scoot my feet back a little bit here to get into my proper plank. Again, dropping the knees if that feels more comfortable. Dropping the body down. You might do your cat-cow instead of your push-ups here. That's okay. Always yogi's choice. If there's a movement you don't feel comfortable with, you don't have to do it. You can pick whatever pose feels yummy for you. Okay, so we're back in our downward facing dog here, having moved through our chaturanga. Pressing down through the right foot, lift up the left. Circling through the foot. Stepping the left hand up, or left foot up between the hands. You might have to take a couple steps, that's okay. High or low lunge, yogi's choice. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands down to the mat. Stepping forward with the right leg, 45 degrees. Make sure we're on our train tracks. You might have to send the left, or heel toe the left foot out to the outside of the mat a little bit. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Into warrior one. Hips are facing the front of the mat. Gentle bend in the right knee. Stacking left knee over left ankle. Inhale here. Exhale to open up to warrior two. You might have to open up that foot a little bit more. Send right hand to right thigh. Left hand comes up and over. Exhale to center. Left forearm to left thigh. Right hand tips up and overhead. Coming back to center. Deep breath in. Coming back to our warrior one. Exhale the hands down to the mat. Step the left foot back.
Meet the right, coming into downward facing dog. Step the feet towards the middle of the mat to meet the hands into our forward fold.
Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale to fold. Beautiful. Okay, let's plant the hands here. Come back down to our table pose. Knees hip width apart. Stacking thighs 90 degrees over the mat. Hands shoulder width apart. Deep breath in as we inhale. Lift the nose, lift the tailbone. Exhale, draw the navel to the spine as we round out, draw the tailbone under. Moving with the breath here as we slow down our practice. These are some challenging poses, but I'm glad that you are approaching them with bravery and courage. Even when things get hard, we just need to keep trying sometimes. Keep practicing. Okay, so we'll come into puppy stretch here. So what we'll do is look where your right hand is right now. Look where your right middle finger is right now in the space in front of it. I want you to drop your right elbow to the space where your right middle finger was pointing to. And then drop the forearm down into sort of a sphinx pose. So look at your left hand now where the middle finger is. Drop your elbow in front of where it was. And bring both hands down. So now your bum is in the air. Keep your knees or your thighs at 45 degrees. Drop the heart center down towards the mat. Coming into our puppy stretch. Beautiful. Okay, so walking the hands back up. Let's send the hip or let's send the knees as wide as far. Let's send the knees wide as the mat now. Big toes together, untucking the toes. Send the hips back into a wide-legged child's pose. Walking the hands forward slowly as we drop the heart center down towards the mat again. Taking a little rest here. Inhale, let's walk the hands back up. Just a little bit, like halfway maybe. We'll take the right hand, thread the needle under the left arm, bringing right shoulder to the ground, right ear to the ground. Send the left arm out long, coming into a twisted child's pose here. Unwinding, pressing up, planting the right hand, left arm threads the needle now, left shoulder, left ear comes to the earth, right arm extends out straight. Pressing back up. Coming through center, maybe one more stretch here. Coming back to center, we'll walk our way all the way up. Bring the knees close together, coming into hero pose. You might press up onto the hands for a second, tuck the toes under, sit the hips back, coming into a bit of a taller version of the pose here, stretching the bottoms of the feet. You might just stay here for a moment, enjoying this stretch, or you might bring the arms up and overhead to a slight back bend. Exhale, folding, untucking the toes, dropping the hips down. We'll come down to a reclined position. Let's draw the knees up to the chest, sinking that low back into the mat, maybe rocking back and forth, giving yourself a little massage. Maybe rolling through the ankles a little bit. Let's hold on to the right knee into the chest, send the left leg long. No, sorry. Let's hold on to the left knee, send the right leg long. Coming into wind relieving pose, flexing through both feet. If you're relieving some wind, that's okay. Holding this for just a moment. You might bring the left hand to the inside of the left knee and just open up through the hip here. Whatever feels good. You might bring it more into a like fallen tree pose. Just exploring maybe that hip mobility a little bit. Bring the knee back to center. Let's bring the right knee back in. Send the left leg on. Circling through the ankles, and then flexing through the feet on the right side here. Opening the leg out to the right as we explore our hip mobility again. You might come into fallen tree pose, so you're bringing the right sole of the foot to the inside of the thigh. Whatever feels good. Now we're going to shift both knees up to the sky. Shifting both knees up to the sky, soles of the feet on the mat. Take the hips, or take the feet about hip width. Take the feet about mat width apart, connecting the low back in with the mat. And we'll drop both knees to the right side of the mat. Coming into a bit of a stretch here. If you need a bit more rotation, you might bring the hands to a bit of a T position here, turn the head to face the right as well. Bringing the knees skyward again. Dropping the knees to the left. Back up through center. You might go back and forth a couple times, pausing on each side if you like, or just bringing them back and forth like little windshield wipers. So bending over to bone massage as well. We'll come back through center when you're ready. And we'll bring the hands down to the hips against the mat. Bring the feet a little bit closer together, so maybe about hip width instead of mat width. And we'll begin to press the hips up towards the sky. You might snuggle the shoulder blades in together a little bit, maybe interlacing the fingers underneath the body as we press the hips skyward, press the tummy skyward into bridge pose here. If you'd like a bit of a challenge, you might lift one leg. A little bit trickier. Bring it back down to the mat. Plant the foot. Lift the other leg. Plant the foot. Untuck the shoulders. Bring the hands to either side of the hips. Maybe hold it here for one more minute. And then slowly, slowly, slowly as you exhale, drop each vertebrae down to the mat. So almost like a big, long massage for every single vertebrae in the spine. Taking your time, slowly, slowly, back down to the mat. Bring the soles of the feet together now, dropping the hips, or dropping the knees outwards, opening the hips, coming in to reclined bound angle, or cobbler's pose. And just holding this for a moment as we let the hips open. If this isn't quite comfortable, you might place blocks or pillows under the knees. Placing the hands on the inside of the thighs or the tummy, or on the mat. And slowing down now as we prepare for our final Savasana. Final relaxation. You deserve it after all that hard work. When you feel ready, sending the legs out straight. Finding a comfortable position with your hands. Maybe grabbing a blanket or pillow if you like. Preparing for Savasana. So bringing your focus back to the breath now. You might bring your hands to the belly for a moment. As we count ourselves down to a state of relaxation. So let's take a deep breath in. We're going to inhale 1. Exhale 1. We're going to inhale 10. Inhale to the count of 10. Exhale 10. Inhale 9. Exhale 9. Inhale 8. Exhale 8. Continuing at your own pace until you reach 1. If your mind wanders, bringing it back to the present, back to the breath. Coming back to the present now. Wiggling fingers and toes. Fluttering the eyelids open, adjusting to the light. Taking your time. When you feel ready, you might roll over onto one side. Taking a moment here. No rush. Or you might stay in Savasana, that's okay too. I am going to press up to a seated position, but if you feel tired, you might as well just stay there. I'll bring hands to heart center. Deep breath in. The light in me sees and honors the light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for day 5. I look forward to seeing you for day 6. The flow that we're doing tomorrow is just a bit more of a flow between all of the poses that we practiced today. It'll be a bit more challenging and a bit more fast-paced, so I encourage you to practice any modifications or variations that you feel are better suited to your body or how you're feeling that day. Again, instead of your chaturangas, you might choose to do a bit of a cat-cow progression instead. Or, if you're doing your push-ups, you might drop down to the knees. It's up to you. Really just do whatever you're comfortable with. And do be aware that your body needs change every day. As I was saying, I was rather cold on the day that I filmed that class, so my stretches aren't as deep as normally maybe I would do them. My balance isn't as great because I'm afraid of falling in the water. So it's okay, as long as you get on your mat and as long as you practice and as long as you are mindful of your body's needs in that particular day, you are winning. You are being courageous. You are a mental health warrior. I commend you and I look forward to seeing you soon. Namaste.